So there's this funny thing that I like to do, and it's to take assessment of where I am right now and then look in the past to see how exactly it is that I got there. What I find so fascinating about life, especially when you review your career path, are the things that happened that seemingly at the time had no meaning, but when you look back with 20/20 hindsight, show you that everything happens for a reason and there's a purpose to all things. It's no accident that I'm a realtor, but it was never even on my radar. I'm Lindsey Johnson, your resource for all things real estate, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me. Most adults that I know are working in a job that they never intended to. It wasn't on their radar, they don't necessarily have a degree in it, but that seems to be the common theme is life leads you into something even if you didn't plan for it. I'm no different. I never had any intentions of being a realtor, but life worked out in a very different way, but I'm really glad that it did. And I think it starts from my childhood. I was really lucky and blessed to have two wonderful parents, and two parents who were both entrepreneurs and business owners. My mom owned her own blueprinting shop, and my dad was a residential contractor for over 40 years. I can vividly remember working at my mom's blueprint shop, cutting the binders that would seal the blueprints, and for every box that I filled, I got one Beanie Baby. And it was really awesome to be able to go to job sites with my dad to get an inside look into how a house is built and all the people and players that are involved. And if I'm being honest, the smell of sawdust still brings me fond memories. I feel like I'm nothing today without the inspiration of my mom and my dad and how hard they both worked. They were an exemplary example of work ethic and sticking to it. I remember my parents working so hard. If it was a Saturday and it was a big storm coming through and my dad was worried that there might be a leak at one of his job sites, at 10 o'clock at night, he was loading a tarp in the car and going to take care of it. My mom would sometimes work till 1 or 2 in the morning running blueprints just to make sure that her customers got what they needed. And oftentimes my mom and dad would be together at the blueprint shop running blueprints and trying to get jobs done. And all their hard work and dedication, I like to think rubbed off, because the work ethic that I have today is absolutely because of their example. And while the influence of my mom and dad is a large part of my story, it's not all of it. In fact, the next piece of this story happened entirely by chance. As a kid, I bounced around from wanting to be an obstetrician, a teacher, a dancer, and singer. I really didn't know what I wanted to do until I got to about middle school. And that's when I discovered cameras. I was always the kid with the camera. When I went to school, disposable cameras were still a thing, and in middle school I always kept one in my backpack just in case something happened. I always wanted to document things, and I loved photography. That passion led into high school, where I took photography classes and I actually won a scholarship for my photography in my senior year. And I went to college at a really interesting time, because I went right at the time where the darkroom was being torn down and traded in for Photoshop and computer labs. One of my favorite things about photography was the darkroom and the artistic side of it. But when I had to declare my major in college, I went the logical way. I declared photojournalism instead of art photography. My initial intention was to travel the world for National Geographic and take a ton of pictures. But I also knew that I wanted to get married and start a family. So I thought if I went with journalism, I could still do what I loved, but I wouldn't necessarily have to travel the world and give up on the family life I also wanted. But hindsight is 20/20, and in looking back, it was probably a pretty big mistake. By the time I graduated with my journalism degree, I was so burned out. In fact, I didn't even look for a single job in journalism. It certainly didn't help that I graduated in 2009 during the crash, when literally every week our professors would tell us another newspaper that had shut down. Feeling burned out and defeated, but knowing that graduation was looming and I was going to have to be a real adult soon, I actually approached the place where I had been working, Gainesville Health and Fitness, teaching as a Group X instructor since I was 18, and asking them if they had any full-time jobs. It turns out they were hiring for membership sales. I had never done anything in sales. I had zero experience, but I'd worked there for a long time and I'd been a good employee, and they were in need of salespeople, so they said they would train me. For the next 8 years, I honed my sales skills. I started selling memberships, and then I did switch over to selling personal training, where I eventually worked up to being the sales manager. Those 8 years were invaluable. I honed my sales skills, I learned what to do and what not to do, but even more importantly, little did I know that I was building a sphere of influence and a set of relationships that were going to serve me from the moment I stepped into the real estate ring. Gainesville is an amazing community, and it is a bit of a small town. In fact, my brother lived here for a while, and he would always comment on the fact that it did not matter where I went, I always ran into somebody that I knew. I never thought anything of it, but bless my brother Chris, because he nagged me for probably 4 years to get my real estate license, and he would always say the same thing. Lindsey, I never go anywhere with you in this town where you don't see somebody you know. You know people, you're personable, you've got to get your real estate license. You'd be so great at it. And usually I'd laugh and roll my eyes and brush it off and we'd go back to what we were doing. But he certainly was persistent, and in 2016, he finally broke me down. After 4 years of persistent nagging, he finally convinced me to get my license. I got my license at the end of 2016, and in January of 2017, I officially started real estate. And I was terrified. Real estate is a job that you can ramp up while you're still working your current job. But the most stressful part to me was both real estate and my current sales job at the time were all completely commission-based. But what I started noticing in my first few months of real estate was everything that had happened in the past was starting to click together and show me that ultimately, real estate was my destination. The large network of people that I had met and created relationships with during my sales job were now becoming people who wanted me to help them buy and sell houses. My visual eye and love for photography was helping me when I was showing property or setting the stage for a listing. And the influence of my parents and their entrepreneurial skills was coming full circle. Now that I'm in real estate, I find that I lean a lot on the experiences I had as a kid. Being on job sites with my dad proved to be very valuable information because even as a brand new agent, I had a lot of knowledge of how a house is built and things to look for. Now, I by no means am an expert and I still hire professionals to do inspections, but it did allow me to speak more intelligently with my customers and help build some trust. And staring at blueprints and house plans certainly didn't hurt. I had some new construction customers early on, and I felt like I had a leg up because I knew a little bit of what I was talking about. When you first start in this business, there's a lot of faking it till you make it, but I felt like I started with a really solid toolbox. And it's no secret that in this business, you have got to work hard. And I think that's why very few agents make it past their first year, and only 13% of agents make it past their 5th year, because this business is hard. And the work that I saw my parents put into their own businesses and the success that they were able to reap from that work was a great source of motivation for me when times got hard and overwhelming and I thought I wanted to quit. Life is crazy and strange and fun and amazing. I love nothing more than looking back and seeing how I got where I'm going. And I would highly encourage you to do the same. Ask the questions of how you got here because, quite frankly, the answers might surprise you. I hope my story has inspired you to take a look at your own. And if you found some value in this video, please be sure to like and subscribe because I've got a whole bunch of great content coming your way. I'm Lindsey Johnson, your resource for all things real estate. Thanks, Mom and Dad.